What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the second part of building a React Native JSI module with C++. In the previous video, we built the iOS part, and today we're going to continue where we left off and finalize the Android part. Now, if you did not watch the previous video, I recommend you go and watch it because we are going to continue from where we left off. However, if you want to just follow along without watching the previous video, you're only interested in the Android part, but I really recommend you to watch the other one because we've set up most of the stuff in the previous video, and I'm going to show here, like just go over the stuff that we went through quickly. But anyways, that's the repo. There's a branch called feed/iOS, and that's where we left off. I'm going to clone this and continue from here. First of all, I just want to say something that I appreciate the person who started this, and it is Maker Mark. Thanks, man. Just it's interesting when people start stuff. Anyways, let's go. So I'm going to clone the repo as I said. So git clone already exists. Oh, okay. It's already there. Let's remove it. Okay, let's clone it. So we start like together, you know. If you're following the video, we're here together. All right, so let's run yarn, guys. So we cd into the directory, and then now we can just run yarn to install all of the dependencies. Now that this is done, I would like to just go over through the project just to kind of go over what we did last time. All right. So in the previous video, we changed so this directory is our module. In this source, we have the JavaScript code of the module. In this native JSI module, we add in the spec, which basically says what our library kind of exposes, or like what call it makes from JavaScript to native. And there's only one function that we do, and that's called install. And in this install function, we bind all of the C++ functions to the JavaScript runtime. If this is a bit weird for you, like this interface spec where we specify the spec, I recommend you to watch the very first two videos on my channel where we build a turbo module where I go into this in detail. Next, in this index.ts, so what we did is we attach an underscore my module object on the global runtime, and in this like property we included all of the functions. So in the kind of entry point of our package, we check if this is defined. If not, we call the install method, which makes it defined, like which adds this property, and then we implement all of our functions, which literally just call this module that are like the functions that we attach to the global JavaScript object, right? And we had 5 functions. The first one is reverse string, takes in a string, reverse it. Another one is just returns an array of numbers. Then another one that just returns an object. And the fourth is a function that takes in 2 callbacks and call one or the other randomly. And finally, the fifth one is just it's called promise number, which takes in a number and resolves it in a promise. And while these functions do not really do anything interesting, like no functionality, like kind of that's useful to use in your own project, what the purpose of these functions is to show you how to do different stuff. Take in a primitive input, return a primitive input, return an array, object, take in callbacks, and do promises. So you can do async and await, or .then and .catch. So kind of we covered here almost everything. And the other thing that we did, and this is where like the most of the heavy lifting that we've done in the previous project, is define our header file, which just defined the install function. And then this kind of was the meat and like everything almost. And that's where we define all of the functions. Never mind the errors. I mean, my editor here is not perfect for the C++ code, But anyways, here is where we define this get object, call me later, promise number, all of the 5 objects, and attaching them to the JavaScript runtime. Yeah, and finally we had this iOS. Let me close these. Finally, we had this iOS module, which really just gets the runtime and calls the C++ install function, which install the which attaches kind of the functions to the global runtime. And that's kind of where we left off last time. And today, all we're going to focus on is Android. And hopefully this video is going to be shorter. I hope. Let's see. Anyways, in order to get started, guys, I recommend you to use Android Studio. I believe you can continue, you can finish this video, follow along without using Android Studio, but it's best really to kind of use the right tool for the right thing. And since we're going to work on Android, I recommend you guys to use Android Studio. So let's go ahead and open Android Studio and click on open, and then find the folder where you clone the repo. I had it on desktop, this one. So I don't want you to open the first Android directory. I want you to go inside example and then Android, all right? And then just give Android Studio a bit of time to kind of do its thing, set up and everything, you know? All right, guys, since Android Studio is done now, it's kind of initialized and everything, takes some time. This is kind of what you end up with. If you open the Android view, make sure you're in the Android view, you have the app, and then you also see our library, which is React Native JSI module. Go ahead and expand that, and then expand Java, right? And then you're going to see this directory with these 2 files, JSI module. So the problem is we named our library React Native JSI module, and there's this kind of convention in React Native where you always end whatever module you have with module. So since we named it JSI module, now it's JSI module. So maybe you can pick a better name, but doesn't matter. So there are these 2 files, and then there's this spec kind of, and the idea here really is just JSI module package. The point of it is really just that it has a kind of get module function which gets passed a name of a module, and then if you know how to return such a module, you do. Otherwise, you return null, right? So just check if the name of the module that it's asking for equal to the name of our module, which if we open here JSI module equals to this one, right? If it's equal to this one, then we return our module, otherwise it's null. That's kind of the purpose of the package, like JSI module package. We won't really be editing this one, just wanted to go over it. Mainly, we're going to edit this one and the JSI module spec. Now, one thing I want to kind of let you know is that if you kind of just check the normal directory structure of our Android, you'd see source, main, Java, com, JSI module, and these are the 2 files. And then there's an old arc, and then there's a new arc, right? And each of them has the same file name, JSI module spec, JSI module spec. And here we see this JSI module spec. But the one that is here is the one that's under the old arc. And it's because depending on the architecture that you are running, you're either going to see this one or this one. So we're going to have to make the module work. And once it's done, we're going to switch the architecture to the new architecture and then fix any issues that are there, okay? But it's going to be very simple, really, when we switch the architecture. So guys, what I want you to do is that I want you to go to this JSI module spec, right? And that's kind of, in this JSI module spec, you specify the functions that your module kind of implements. And inside this JSI module is where you do the implementation, okay? So if we check the spec here, it defines a public abstract, basically it defines a multiply function, okay? If you check the previous video, you'd know that this multiply function is here because when we initialize the module using the helper library that we used, it had a multiply function in there already. So this is kind of a left off from when we initialize the project. Since we don't implement multiply function anymore, we can remove that and just replace it with install, right? Because as I mentioned, the method that we implement is the install method. So let's go ahead and replace that with install, and the return value of this one is Boolean, as you can see here. Actually, let me increase the font size if in case this is not view. Increase. Okay, that's command control shift dot. Okay, hope this is better now in case it was small. As said, the return value is no longer void, it's Boolean. So let's go ahead and change that. Boolean, and it takes in no arguments. Oh, so let's delete all of the parameters here. Now that we changed this function that we implement, let's go now to the JSI module. All right, guys. So there are a couple of interesting things here. Don't worry very much about the error. If you want to remove the error, just make sure that you prefix this with com.jsi module or whatever kind of like the path of the library that you kind of have, like here com.jsi module, and this will resolve most of the errors. So let's check here what we have. There is this static system.load library, and this is kind of where it loads the C++ code, kind of our C++ code, because let me kind of go through like how we're going to implement this, all right? So our JavaScript is going to call the install method that is in Java, and then from Java code, we're going to call in the install method that's in C++, all right? But the problem with Android is that it's not really as easy to call C++ like code basically, as in iOS. You kind of need to have this layer, all right? And the layer that you have is called JNI, and you need the CPP adapter in order to kind of make this layer. But anyways, we're going to go through this and like do it step by step. But anyways, you don't really have to change this one usually. You just keep it as it is, right? And then as we said, we no longer have the multiply. So let's go ahead and change. And the reason that we have an error here is that the JSI module spec specifies an install method, but we don't have an install method. So let's go ahead and change this to install, and this takes in no arguments. And now the error is gone, like at least from here, and we can just resolve this with true, just to kind of, now we have no errors. Okay, that's perfect. Now, in order to kind of call this like the code that's in CPP adapter, as you can notice, there's here native multiply, okay? And this native multiply function really just references the one that is here, all right? So if you check here the name, it says Java com JSI module underscore JSI module underscore native multiply. So just JNI has a really specific structure to kind of name its functions, but basically it starts with Java, then com JSI module is just the name, like the path of the package, and then JSI module is the name of the file, which is here JSI module, and finally the name of the actual method. So native multiply, there's here native multiply. Now we don't want native multiply anymore. We want native install, all right, in order to be able to call the install method that's in C++. So we change this one to install. Let's go and do install. And this does not really return a double, it just returns nothing. So we do void, and it takes in a long of like a parameter called JSI of type long. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pass, sorry, let's name this native install, just to keep it as before native multiply, native install. So the idea here is that we are going to define a function called native install, right? That we pass it a pointer to the JSI runtime, and then using this JSI runtime that we pass here, we can call actually our code which actually install, because here it expects the JSI runtime. All right. So here you're going to get an error. So you can just hover over it and it says cannot resolve corresponding JNI function. And it specifies here the name of the function. You see it's Java JSI module, the name of the package, and then the name of the file that we have, and finally the name of the function. So what you can do is you can say create JNI function for native install. Like it can create this for us. So let's hit enter and it'll ask you where you want to create it. So we're going to say cpp adapter.cpp. That's where we want it. Okay. And we can, this is no longer being used. We can just delete it. All right. So as you can see, like these two parameters are really not useful for us. We're not going to use them. The third parameter is actually the parameter that we specified. So you see this long here, that's exactly what's going to be passed to us. So let's go ahead and implement this install method now. So when JavaScript calls install, right here, let me show you again. Line 27. So when this call gets in like run, what we're going to call here is this install method, all right? And what we want to do is we want to call the native install method, which adds the C++ functions to the global runtime. So what we want to do is do native install, and now we need to pass it a pointer to the JSI runtime. So in order to do that, we can do something like we need to get the JavaScript context holder and just name it context holder equals to, we first need to get the React application context, and then we get the get JavaScript context holder. All right. And from here, we do an if statement and we check if the context holder is null, because it could be null. So we check if it's not null. Up. And if it's not null, oh my God, just one. Yeah. We call context holder dot get, and the get here returns a long, right? And this long is a pointer to the JSI runtime. So if this kind of worked, like we were able to get the JavaScript runtime, we're going to return true. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to return false. And yeah. So guys, now we are calling the native install. Now the issue is that native install has nothing in it. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to import, like we have this React Native JSI module, which we did in the previous project, right? We need to import, like we need to call this JSI module install, and we need to pass it the JSI runtime. Okay. Now, how do we get this? Like this JSI is just a long, all right? But we need to kind of cast it to a JSI runtime. In order to do that, first of all, we need to be able to import JSI, all right? Let's go ahead and try and do that. Now, as you can see, there's an error, guys, and it says that it is not found. Now, in order to make it be found, what we need to do is we need to go and mess with CMake lists.txt, all right? Now, let me show you where this is in the normal folder structure, not in Android Studio. Like in this Android, there is a CMake lists.txt. And if you don't know what CMake lists.txt, it really doesn't matter much, guys, because most of the steps here are really like are always going to be the same. Most of the code that's going to change is the one that's in CPP here, like these ones, where you attach your functions, but you really don't need to like very much understand like these other stuff because it's almost always the same. All right. Anyways, we open the CMake list.txt. In order to be able to use JSI in our library, we need to find a package of the name React Android. All right. And we're going to mark it with required and config. Okay. So all we're doing here is we're telling CMake to look for a library or a package called React Android. And we're saying it's required. So if you can't find it, like you need to fail, right? And as I said, if you don't know what cmakelist.txt, like what's cmake, it's basically just a build system or like kind of the thing that manages C++. Like when you want to build a C++ project, and usually you'd use a like cmake, right? And a cmakelist.txt is where you configure the cmake. Anyways, first we're looking for React Android, and then we need to say target link libraries. So we want to link our library, React Native JSI module. All right, so React Native, React Native JSI module, and we want to link this our library with React Android JSI. Now, one thing just to note here, guys, as we're going to do this, we're going to like run into errors, and I'm not going to kind of just put everything in just so that the errors, like there are no errors from the first time. The reason I'm doing it like I'm doing one thing, we run into an error, we fix it, is just so that you see why we are adding stuff. I don't want you to just add in, yeah, copy paste to everything. No, I want you to kind of see an error. Oh, okay, because of this error, we need to add this thing. All right. Anyways, now that we added the JSI, like we are linking JSI with our library, what I want you to do is I want you to run Gradle, right? Like I want you to kind of rerun the Android project and see if we get any errors, right? And what you can do is you can go here to this build and then hit this reload. Another thing that another way that you can do it if you are not using Android Studio is you can go into the example project, Android, and then in here you can do dot forward slash Gradle W assemble debug info. You can call this one and you're going to kind of get the same errors that we're going to get. Anyways, I'm going to use both. So now, like for the first time, let's use Android Studio and check the error that we're going to get. It says could not find a package configuration file provided by this one. So basically it can't find React Android, which we specified here, and we said it's required. So if you can't find it, just fail. So in order to fix this one, you need to go to the Gradle scripts and look for the build.gradle that has the React Native JSI module, our module. And in the normal folder structure, that would be in Android and then build.gradle, all right? In here, just open that file and then go down until you find under the Android block, all right? There's a build features block. If you don't have the build features, like when I generated this library using the script that we used, it already has this build features. If you don't have it, like you're building your own library and this was not included, you can add it. And then inside this, you need to add prefab true. All right. And like what this says is that this allows us to use libraries that are kind of external or like that are part of that are available like in other libraries, like in our React Native app, there are other dependencies and we can use them in our module basically. So when we add this now, let's go and now try and running Gradle from here, right? So you can do it from Android Studio, you can do it from here, both work, right? So now we get another error. Let's check out the error, guys. So here it's kind of harder to find errors, but anyways, we're going to look for it. Okay, so this is kind of the interesting error for us. So user is using a static STL, but library requires a shared STL, and it's talking about this one, React Android. All right, so in order to fix this one, we need to also in the build.gradle, we need to go inside the Android block, inside the default config. There's an external native build and then cmake. All right. So to cmake, we need to pass arguments. So we specify arguments, and then we do d Android underscore STL equals C++ underscore shared. Okay. So here it's saying that it's a static but requires a shared STL. So all we're saying here, Android SEL, make it to be shared. And this D is just the way of how you pass like arguments to CMake, right? You first specify like dash D and then whatever like argument name and then the like and then argument value, all right? So this D like slash D is not really part of the name, it's just how you specify arguments. Anyways, now let's try and sync again. Again, you can do it from Android Studio or from the command line. Now let's rerun it. And it says build successful. And just to show you that you can also do it here. Now, after we got the error, we can run this and then, okay, interesting. Okay, so that's kind of another error like that we need, like we can fix again. It's just in the CPP adapter. It says the JSI runtime was not passed. But anyway, we fixed the other error. That's the point. So now that we fixed this, let's go to CPP adapter. And that's the error that it was saying that we are not passing anything. But what's the good thing is now JSI is no longer showing an error. Like we can now use JSI. And that's what we wanted, right? So in order to get the JSI runtime from this pointer, we say JSI runtime pointer, and then we say runtime equals to reinterpret cast, and we pass this long, which is the JSI, and we say reinterpret it as a JSI runtime. All right, and reinterpret cast is a way of how you can like cast one pointer to another. So this JSI is a pointer, and we want another pointer, which is the JSI runtime, and that's how you would be like, yes, cast it to a JSI runtime. Let's add in a semicolon here, and let's pass in the runtime. But the install function expects a reference, not a pointer, so we dereference the pointer. And now let's try and running this again. Check if we have any issues. So yes, and now what's the issue? Trying to just find the okay, yeah, it says two files found with path blah 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 libjsi.so. Right, so basically this file was found twice. So what we can do is we go again to the build.gradle. Okay guys, let me minimize this one, and then again inside the Android block, just somewhere here we can do it under the build features, right, to keep our changes like close to each other. Just do packaging options and then block excludes, all right, equals star libjsi.so. Now again guys, as I said, like I'm on purpose doing one step by step so you see the errors and why we need search. I don't want to go and be like, yeah, just add in prefab true, add in this one, add in this arguments for no reason. I want you to see why we're adding these basically and why we are changing what came with the original module. So now let's run this again. Okay, as you can see guys, down we have no errors. So let's try and run our example. All right, let's go ahead and do yarn start and build the Android app. And the app was built successfully. So let's go ahead and test. So just to kind of recap what we already have in our app.tsx, all we are doing guys, we are importing our functions from our module, and we have a button for every function, and we are just console logging basically. All right, so let's go ahead and see reverse string. So the app crashes. Let's check what's the error. Probably we missed something. Let's go ahead and check the JSI module. Here's install, native install, CP adapter. We are calling the install. Let's close this one. Spec, yeah. Actually, let's go ahead and maybe remove this one. I'm not sure if this could be causing it, but let's try. Oh, okay. Okay, so I remembered, well, what was the issue. We can keep this for now. So the issue is that we need to make this install function synchronous, right? So there's this act method, kind of decorated. We just need to pass it is blocking synchronous equals to true, and I believe this is going to fix it. So let's go and run this again. Let's see. Yep. So as you can see here, this is reverse string reversed, get number, returns a number, object, promise, and callback. And callback is random. So as you can see. So just to understand, guys, like why did we get the error here? If you check our module, if we go to source index, so when the app is being when the module is being kind of imported, we are doing the install function, right? Like we are installing the bindings. So the problem is that the install function was not synchronous, right? So we were kind of calling this method. It was installing and directly calling our function. So since it was kind of asynchronous, it was the install function was asynchronous. By the time we were trying to call reverse string, this was not like finally, like it was not finalized. So we just need to say that it is blocking synchronous method. But all of our other functions here are synchronous, guys, like reversing the string, get number, like all of our functions are really synchronous. Anyways, now that we have our module working on the odd architecture, let's go ahead and switch architectures, right? And make sure that it also works on the new architecture. Let's go ahead just and change, like return this, guys, because I do not want to keep this way, this com, whatever. Like it works also without it, and even though there are errors, no worries. In order to switch to the new architecture, you need to go to the gradle.properties of the app, all right? And from here, you need to switch this false to true, all right? And now you need to sync again. And what we're going to change is really, guys, very minimal. So now if you kind of go ahead and check the file that's under Java, these two files do not change, but this JSI module spec is changed, right? So now our class extends from this spec, and this spec is because of CodeGen, which generates an abstract class. If you don't know what CodeGen is, go back to my first two videos where I explain it more when we did the turbo module. But anyways, there's also an error, like it can't resolve simple native JSI module spec. So for testing purposes, we can invoke the CodeGen ourselves. So you go to the example, and then you go to Android, and then you do this script. Dot forward slash gradle w generate CodeGen artifacts from schema. Now, when someone is using your library, this happens automatically. Don't worry. The only reason we're doing this is because we are like developing the library. So you just call this, and now this should be defined. Now, if you go ahead and check the spec, you will see that it has this install function. So we don't really have to add in anything in the new architecture. It's only in the old architecture, like if we check here in the in Android, source, old arc, JSI module spec, here we had to specify the install function, but in the new architecture, we don't have to specify anything because CodeGen takes care of everything and defines it for us. Now, guys, all we need to do is run the app really, and just notice, actually, I can show it to you in a bit, but let's run the app again. Now that we have turned on the new architecture. Okay, guys, so the new architecture now is built, like the app with the new architecture is built. And one way to tell if the app is running on the new arc or not, you can check here. It says just root tag 11, but with the new run, it says fabric true. And also here it says no bridge. Anyways, let's test our functions. Leave a string, works, get number, get object, promise, callbacks. and the callbacks are random, one or the other. And as you can see, guys, so we just finalized the Android part of things for a module that exposes C++ functions that can be called synchronously from JavaScript. All these functions are synchronous except for the promise, because that's the idea of promises and callbacks, right? Anyways, guys, if you like the video, please leave a like. This way I know that you guys are benefiting from this one and that my explanation is good. If it's not good, please provide feedback. What can I improve? Should I go slower? Should I do something else? Improve my explanation or whatever. And if you'd like to keep up with the channel and know when I uh, upload a new video, make sure you subscribe. And I'm hoping to install I'm hoping to publish 2 more videos, and that's how to create a pure C++ turbo module. And that's kind of way better than this implementation. But the thing is, the C++ turbo module is kind of experimental, especially like auto linking of it. So I'll really try to research it, and if it works out, I'm probably going to make a video about it. But yeah, that's it, and thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.